Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed and understood the previous topic we were talking about. So, we are going to be talking about occupation. So, firstly, let's actually define what occupation actually is. So, an occupation is a job or a profession people do in order to earn income, supporting themselves and their families. So, essentially, it contributes to economies by producing goods and also services that meet social or societal needs and wants at a particular point in time. So what you have to understand is that occupation is what somebody does in order to earn money, to have an income, in order to support themselves, in order to, let's say, take care or cater for their family, and as well as, let's say, do certain other things. Maybe it could be education, it could be secondary things such as maybe traveling or other kinds of activities. So we're going to look at the importance of occupation. Now, occupation plays a crucial role in commerce as it directly influences economic activities, and also it drives innovation, as well as the fact that it supports the overall development of societies. Now, take for example, I am also in an occupation right now as I'm actually doing this tutorial for you, because this is what I'm going to do in order to get paid, in order for me to be able to buy the clothes I need to wear, in order to feed myself. Maybe if I have a dependent, I would be able to provide for that particular person. So it is important for people to have an occupation in order for them to be able to boost the economy. Let's say we have a country where nobody is working. That country is not going to work because money is not moving. Commerce is all about cash flow, where money moves from one place to the other. Now, this cash flow, this movement is actually what makes an economy boom. The more cash flow, the better. So next, we're going to be talking about economic stability and growth. Now, the first thing you need to look at is income generation. So occupation boosts income and demand. Now, if I am actually doing something, which I am doing right now by actually tutoring you, so I'm supposed to be expecting money that, let's say at the end of the month, I'm expecting XYZ amount of money. Now, as I'm expecting XYZ amount of money, there are certain things that are going to be in demand. First thing for me would be food. Second would be clothing. And then the rest of them would just be secondary, except shelter, which is one of the things you need to. So I'll need to feed myself. I'll need to clothe myself. I'll need to shelter myself. So these three things are going to be in demand. And the rest of those other things will be in demand, but they are not as important because they are secondary. So we also have the employment, which in this case, diverse occupation reduce unemployment and also help to stabilize an economy. So if you have a country, or let's say an economy where you have more people employed, then that particular economy is going to thrive better than any other economy that doesn't have these particular characteristics. So employment is a very important, or we should say crucial aspect of an economy. So skill development and innovation. Now, skill enhancement is one of the things we're going to talk about under the skill development and innovation. So occupation requires skill. So you need a specific skill in order to be able to survive or even participate in a particular occupation. So it also helps in furthering or fostering the development. So in this case, if you have a specific skill, let's say that my own specific skill, in order for me to come and start tutoring you, is that I like talking a whole lot and explaining things. So I have the knack for explaining things to be easier for another person to understand. Now, that particular skill is where I'm actually practicing and also furthering that particular development of my skill, because now the more I explain things, the better I become at explaining things to another person, which is actually a skill. Now, in order for you to actually participate in a particular occupation, you need to have a skill. So let's say for someone who wants to be, let's say, a driver, you need to know how to drive. And the more you drive, the better you become at driving. Hence, what we call experience. So next is innovation. Innovation in occupation drives technological advancement as well as innovation, as we already talked about. So you have to kind of understand these things, where the more you do it, the better you are able to do it, and the more you are able to innovate in that particular field of occupation that you're actually practicing or actually doing. Next, we have the consumer spending and demand. Now, market demand Market demand is where a whole lot of people need a particular thing. It's needed. It's very, very necessary. Take, for example, let's say Paul is somebody who produces soap, and then we have another person who produces, who actually cooks food and sells that food. Now, what you're going to understand is that the person who sells food is going to be more in demand than, let's say, somebody who sells soap. Why? Because now, that particular soap is not every day that somebody washes their clothes, but every day somebody must eat. So, what is necessary? Necessity in this case is said to be the mother of all inventions. This is where the more you need this thing, the more you demand for this thing, and the more of that thing that needs to be put into the market to actually cover up all what everybody needs. So next, we also have the consumer confidence. Now, you could have a product that is great, but if I'm not confident using that product, it's still not going to sell. So demand in this case and confidence actually work hand in hand, because if your product is not in demand, could be out of the result that the consumer doesn't have confidence in what you're selling. Then we also have the business operations and productivity. So operational efficiency. Let's say you have a company, but each time somebody, or let's say you have a shop, each time someone comes to sell, you don't even know where you kept, let's say, sugar. Someone came to buy a pack of sugar, but you yourself that owns a shop, you don't know where your pack of sugar actually is. It's a problem, because now the person can get frustrated and say, each time I come to buy something, you don't even know where you keep these things. So why would I even come? Let me go to somebody who is more organized. So we also have productivity. Productivity is the sense where in a business where you actually are thriving in, productivity is necessary, because in this case, you are able to actually, let's say, run your business smoothly, and the operations of your business are actually okay in such a sense that it actually adds value to the people who are buying from you.
So next you have the social development and welfare. Now, the social development and welfare, under the social development and welfare, we have standard of living. And the standard of living of the people or a person who is actually in a particular location is actually going to affect the occupation that the person goes for. Because if the standard of living is actually okay, let's say in a particular environment, better than where they actually came from, it makes it easy for the person to migrate to this place or be able to actually go for jobs based on the fact that the standard of living is going to be increased or is going to be improved. So we also have the community development. Now, people who actually stay based on the fact that they have a good job, or the people in this particular area have good jobs, it makes it easy for them to actually develop their own community, where you have a particular community having good roads, having constant electricity and all the amenities or utilities that is necessary for raising the standard of living or having a specific standard of living. So in this case, community development still comes in. So next we have global trade and economy. Now, international trade in this case can actually influence the occupation that a particular person chooses to actually go for, based on the fact that in this case, the person who is actually planning to actually do a particular job might be going for a particular job based on the fact that it's internationally recognized. And then we also have economic interdependence. Now, having based people who are actually educated in a particular way or who have knowledge in a specific kind of thing can make it easy for economies to be interdependent on each other, based on the fact that this particular economy has more people who are engaging in this particular thing or who are experienced in doing this particular thing. So you may have things where, let's say, most of the people who actually do a specific kind of, let's say, aeronautic engineering in Nigeria are actually people who are from outside the country, because they have this particular knowledge and they take this to be their occupation. So Nigeria, in this case, gets dependent on these countries that have these people who have these skills.
So government revenue is the next thing we're going to talk about. Now, in government revenue, what you have to note is that government actually make money from you having money in the first place. So let's say taxation. Now, occupation generates tax revenue. So as you are working, the government can tax you. That's the reason why, like, let's say you go to as a child who is not up to 18 years old, or let's say older, you're not going to be taxed because they know that you're not working. So that means at that particular point in time, you are not beneficial to, let's say, you're not benefiting the government, because the government is not really getting anything from you until you're of age. So we also have regulation and policy. So occupations in public administration, in this case, ensure fair practices and economic stability by regulating and the commercial environment for people to actually stay. Now, this also helps in preventing monopoly. Let's say there's a job. Rather than them giving this job to somebody else, one person keeps on sitting and then taking more than one job. Or let's say you are working for a company. Now, everybody knows that closing hours should be, let's say, around 6 p.m. The person tells you that if you don't work till 10 in the night, I'm not paying you. That kind of thing. There has to be like a policy to actually help and check all these things, maltreatments and the rest of it. So next we look at the role of occupation in economic development. Now, occupation plays a crucial role in fostering economic development. We've talked about how it helps in tax and also helps in the standard of living. So income generation is the next thing we're looking at. So occupation generates income, which also helps in stimulating the economy through the activities of people spending. And then we also have the production of goods and services. Now, goods and services will be produced if somebody has an occupation, because those goods and services has to be paid for, and you cannot pay for them without having an occupation, which actually gives you the money to pay for these things. So employment generation. Now, occupation helps to reduce unemployment and increases participation, and also helps to alleviate poverty through job creation, where you don't have to sit down and beg mom for money or have to beg somebody else for money. You can always go and get your money by working for your money. So specialization and efficiency. So occupation promotes specialization, where individuals can focus on specific skills and tasks, thereby leading to increased productivity and efficiency in the production process in a particular country or area. So we'll look at the types of occupation. Now, occupation can be categorized into several types based on the nature of the work they involve. So industrial occupation. So industrial occupation in this case produces goods and services through manufacturing, mining, construction, and also supporting industrial economies. So in this case, industrial occupation, this is where you know that you're working maybe in a company or in a factory that actually produces things, let's say goods and services in this case. So commercial occupation is the next thing we're looking at. So commercial occupation involves buying and selling goods and services, including retail, wholesale, marketing that particular good or goods that you're trying to sell or product, and then distribution in this case, where you actually distribute these things and the distribution rules. So who is in charge of distributing, who is in charge of actually doing the actual sell or the final sell. So they facilitate the exchange between producers and consumers, because now the producers may not know where the consumers actually stay and may not have the time to actually do it themselves. So this also helps in driving economic transaction and also trade. So next we look at the service occupation. Service occupation provides intangible services. Now this, when we say intangible services, we're talking about services that you cannot quantify. Like for example now, as I'm actually tutoring you, can you actually quantify what I am giving to you? It's not something you can put in a cup or use a meter rule to actually measure and say, okay, this is the quality I am actually giving to you. It's something that is intangible, but is still essential. So including things like, for example, healthcare, education, which education is what I'm actually doing, like educating you, the listeners of this particular tutorial. So hospitality, where you can go to a hotel, finances, where you actually save your money or you can get money from or a loan from. Professional services. So examples are doctors, teachers, which I have one. I'm actually teaching you right now. Hotel staff, bankers, lawyers, accountants, which actually help in enhancing the quality of life and the efficiency. So next we're going to look at the factors influencing choice of occupation. So there are several factors influencing individuals' decisions regarding their chosen occupation. And the first one we're going to look at is education and skills. Now, education and skills influence career choice or choices, as the case may be, which with higher educational opening opportunities in specialized field. Now, somebody who has a better education will go into, let's say, a more specialized field. And even those that don't have that much of, let's say, educational standard, they still go into specialized field. Like, for example, you have people who actually are mechanics. It's not compulsory to have like a high level, let's say have a master's to actually be a mechanic, but that's still being specialized. So based on what you know, that's how you're going to be able to, let's say, invest your self into. So next is the personal interest and aptitude. Individuals often choose occupations based on their personal interest, their passion, and natural aptitude towards doing that particular thing. So this, in this case, aligning with one's career with personal interest can lead to job satisfaction and success, because first of all, it's not just you doing something you don't like, it's something you want to do or something you you could enjoy doing. That's the reason why you did it in the first place. So we also have the economic opportunities. Now, economic factors such as job availability, income potential, and growth prospects. Now, when we're talking about the job availability, let's say you know that this particular job is always available. You just know that, okay, if I do this particular thing and get this particular job, that means it's not really about getting the job, it's about the fact that the job is always there. So you would be encouraged. Let's say maybe you are a lazy person, or let's say you're somebody who doesn't want to stress too much to go to look for jobs that are too difficult to do or too far off, or very selected people can actually get into. You just go for the one that's easily available as long as it pays well. Hence the income potential, where you know that, okay, this job pays well. Now, most times people may not have aptitude for this particular thing, but the thing is that because of how much it pays, they actually want to do that job. For example, like having somebody who wants to go into medical sector, not because he actually likes blood, or let's say likes doing the medical things. He may not necessarily like these things, but the fact that you're the person is actually looking at this and saying, okay, being a medical doctor would pay me better. Let's say there are big hospitals and they pay people a whole lot of money. That person might actually be interested. So growth prospects in specific occupations influences career decisions, where you realize that, okay, being a doctor, okay, anywhere I go to, they're going to be saying doctor this, doctor that, having that feeling comfortable, as well as the fact that it helps you to have smart contacts or have connections, which is actually useful.
Thank you for listening.